Hi, I'm Alana, Destroyer of Worlds here at Noise Engineering. We're excited to introduce modulation to our plugins. Today, we're showing off an update to our Freequel Bundle, our free plugins. These updates are free and are reverse compatible with your current Freequel Bundle. The Freequel Bundle is available for Mac and PC in VST, AU, and AAX formats. Get the new LFO update or the free plugins now at the customer portal at portal.noiseengineering.us. This modulation format will be the same across our future plugins too, so if you master it here, you'll know how to use all of our future releases. If you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more plugin content. With this update, all of our free plugins now feature a comprehensive modulation routing system. LFOs include simple and hybrid waveforms, envelopes, and step sequencers. We'll get into more detail on these later in this video. 4 macro sliders can be assigned to any number of parameters. The macros can in turn be mapped to MIDI controllers, automated, or modulated with other LFOs. Note changes value based on what note is currently played. The note range can be changed in Modulation, Other. The envelope is the onboard dynamics envelope in synthesizer plugins. In effect plugins, this takes the volume envelope of incoming sound and turns it into a modulation signal. Velocity is MIDI note velocity. Aftertouch is channel and note aftertouch. And finally, we've updated how parameters can be assigned to MIDI CCs. When modulation is enabled on a parameter, a box showing the range of enabled modulation will appear, and a small indicator will move within the range box, showing the exact position of the modulation. On the tone page, you'll also notice indicators on any parameters you have modulated. To assign modulation, including MIDI CC and velocity to a parameter, right-click it or control-click on a Mac. Each LFO's current value is represented by the intensity of the color in the box to help you keep track of them. This context menu shows all of the available modulation routing options. Let's go through them. This is a copy of the parameter being modulated for easy adjustment. The modulation that you see here is a sum of all modulation sources. Index sets the amount of modulation from a particular source. Fully left, the modulation is bypassed. You'll see an indicator appear on the parameter copy showing the index and range. The direction button sets the polarity and inversion of incoming modulation. Unipolar modulates from the point selected on the parameter up to the level indicated by the index setting. Inverted unipolar goes in the opposite direction. Bipolar sets the point selected on the parameter as the center of the modulation range. In inverted bipolar, the point selected on the parameter becomes the center of the modulation range, but instead of beginning in the center, modulation begins at the outside edges. Sometimes you'll know exactly which direction you want to use. Other times, it will make more sense to experiment and use your ears until you find a setting you like. The curve slider on each modulation source changes how modulation will affect the parameter. In the center, modulation is linear, and the parameter movement matches incoming modulation exactly. To the right, modulation becomes logarithmic, and to the left, it becomes exponential. Each modulation source has a checkbox. When checked, modulation from that source is enabled. When unchecked, modulation is bypassed. The QT, or quantized checkboxes, will appear only when modulating pitch. Modulation sources can continuously affect pitch, or only in in-tune notes. Click this Learn CC button to enable MIDI CC Learn on a parameter. Move a parameter on your MIDI controller and the plugin will exit Learn mode and the parameter will now respond to that CC. If clicked by mistake, click Waiting on CC to exit Learn mode. Click Forget CC to remove an assignment. This clear modulation resets modulation settings for a particular parameter. It does not affect CC assignments. When this Allow Randomize box is checked, the parameter you're editing will be randomized when Rand or Nudge on the tone page is clicked. Once modulation is set up for a parameter, it will be indicated on the tone page as a small vertical rectangle on the left side of the parameter slider. On the modulation page in the more narrow Ruina, Mods shows the modulator settings and Route shows the modulation routing for the selected modulator. In Sync and Vert Varier, mods are on the left and corresponding routes are on the right. There are 3 types of LFO modulation: wave, step, and ADSR. Shape sets the type of LFO. And reset LFO resets the LFO back to its default state. Speed and beat set the rate of the LFO. In unsynced modes, this is a slider that sets the rate in seconds. In synced modes, this is a fraction that sets the rate in beats. Index sets the modulation range of the LFO. With LFO set to wave, there are a variety of sync modes. Free is a single, completely free-running LFO which never resets. Transport mode sets the speed in seconds, but the LFO follows the transport of the DAW. Tempo is a single LFO that is synced to the tempo and transport of the DAW. In poly free, each note played gets its own LFO. LFOs are reset at the start of each note. Remember that there are multiple oscillators in these synths? If not, brush up by watching our Freequel manual video. Similar to tempo, in polytempo, a tempo-synced LFO is created per note. LFOs reset at the start of each note. The type slider morphs between different waveforms. You can also select a specific waveform using these buttons if you'd prefer. Time warp skews the timing of the waveform. Phase changes the starting point of the wave. Noise adds randomness to the waveform. Color changes the intensity of randomness added to the waveform, and is only visible when noise is above minimum. With LFO set to step, most of the sync modes behave the same as with wave, but step adds a few more parameters. Count sets the steps in the sequencer. The up and down arrows change the count by 1, and the multiply to and divide to buttons double or halve the count. Smooth adjusts how smooth the transition between steps is. Time warp skews the timing of the sequencer. In this graph, you can edit your sequence by clicking and dragging. These buttons can assist by generating different types of patterns for you. With ADSR, choose poly to create an envelope for each voice, or mono to create a single envelope for all voices. These are your standard attack, decay, sustain, and release controls. Slope sets the curve of the envelope with linear in the center. When set to once, the envelope goes through a single cycle per note press. When set to loop, the envelope will loop as long as a note is playing, and the sustain setting changes the level between the decay and release. Macros 1 through 4 are sliders that can be assigned to any number of other parameters and modulated by hand, with LFOs, or with MIDI CCs. In other, note indicates the current note modulator value. Start sets the lowest note in the note modulator range. Notes below this give the minimum value. Range sets the highest note in the current note modulator range. Notes above this give the maximum value. Envelope indicates the current envelope modulator value. Velocity indicates the current velocity modulator value. And Aftertouch indicates the current Aftertouch modulator value. You can remove all modulation assignments for the current modulator with the Clear button, or remove all modulation assignments across all modulators with the Clear All button. The X checkbox, direction, curve, and amount controls are the same as in the context menu. Effects work generally the same as synths, but have a slimmed down shape and sync option set. So, why modulate? Why not? Modulation enables us to incorporate movement and timbral variation into our sounds. It allows us to change parameters without needing to manually adjust them. It can sound human or robotic. Let's take a listen now. Thank you so much for watching. We hope you enjoy these plugins as much as we do. Subscribe for more noise engineering content like this. Until next time!